MMOs. I can't say that they really grab my water bottles. Sure, I've played a few. Project Entropia for a few years, The Secret World for about 5 years, and, I don't know, PWI? For like a month or two? Apart from those, most MMO games just don't really do it for me. I prefer the single-player experience more than being at the mercy of other players being online, whether or not they're there to help or hinder. And I think that's why I stuck with PE and TSW for as long as I did. Great, huge swaths of those games are or were set up in such a way to allow for solo play, leaving only raids and bosses and such as things that pretty much required group play, if you could scrounge up enough people to jump in. At times, that was a difficult ask in both games, but both also seem to enjoy a fairly steady and hardcore group of players that have likely been there from the start. I always fell more on the casual side and often saw MMOs as a fun way to still find human interaction when I'd be in my yearly hibernation mode. So, with a background like that, it only makes sense that I'd be playing Last Oasis, the PvP MMO lumbering in from somewhere in the deserts of Poland. It's being developed by Donkey Crew, a small outfit from Wrocław, made up of a loose bunch of like-minded modders that just one day said, "Hey, let's make a video game." And so they did. By the way, they're currently hiring, so go get in it. Last Oasis is the evolving result of that labor. And yeah, it brings with it some of the stuff you might expect from this kind of game. Leveling that will help you get bigger, stronger, faster. Hunting up faunas and floras for useful bits of thing, and other people on a self-imposed mission to make your day as good, bad, or ugly as they currently feel. However, there are two things that make this one a little different from the rest of the MMO flotilla. Now, it's important to note, neither of these things are intrinsically new. It's more how they're implemented that make this game feel a little different. First, this game focuses its players much more intently on PvP gameplay, encouraging players to band up and vie for control of territories. Second, this is all accomplished on the backs of some of the most innovative and interesting vehicle designs I think I've run across to date, the walkers. And before I get into that, I again want to point out that these gameplay mechanics aren't new. Space Cowboy, then Ace Online, was doing this stuff almost 15 years ago. Unfortunately, they had a free-to-play, pay-to-win model, and it wasn't necessarily balanced in any way for those that wanted to play free and grind. But similar idea. Build and outfit a ship, pick a side, and PvP battle for control of maps and, hence, resources, in a way. So what makes this different from that? Well, first, it ain't F2P, and second, back to those walkers. These things are great. They look like the kind of engineering you'd run into at a Burning Man festival. Like some squirrely dude out in the desert tripped out on some cactus juice and was shown a pedal-powered walking machine by the great god Peyote. Stir in a healthy mix of Mad Max and you've got yourself the first Burning Max-style game in the Burning Max genre. I debated on labeling this as Mad Max the RV edition, but Burning Max has a certain thing to it. So genre-wise, this game falls firmly in the BM, PvP, MMORPG camp. And like most MMOs in my past, I played this one for a couple weeks, then pretty much forgot about it. I'll riff on this idea a little later on, but I bring it up now to emphasize the fact that I couldn't have come back at a better time. Sorta.
Oh man. Do you remember what I have told you? If you find your trousers full of sand, you've landed in the wastes.
So, gameplay. And yeah, this is pretty standard fare for those that have seen an MMO before. You start in a tutorial zone that gets you acquainted with the different menus, where to find your inventory and how to use it, where to find the character screen, where to find recipes or plans and how to use them, and yeah, etc. Most things in the tutorial will take about 45 minutes to trundle through, and it's thorough enough to get you out into your first oasis. Mostly, you'll be running around gathering materials, taking on the occasional atavism, and building your first land yacht. For the most part, the control scheme is pretty standard. First or third person WASD stuff, mouse controls camera, button 1 attack, button 2 block, etc, etc. Blocking enemy attacks isn't necessarily difficult, but sometimes I've seen my guard drop for no apparent reason. In the tutorial area, that probably won't be a life ender, but it can be a death sentence out in the larger world. This starting area and the menu's controls have been the same since I picked up the game, so it should be pretty much what you can expect on starting for the first time. But I couldn't have come back at a better time, right? Well, yeah, maybe. Last Oasis entered early access in March of this year, and Donkey Crew has spent the last 8 months learning. Feedback from the players, frequent questions from their Discord and Reddit that they answer fairly often, and watching the player base slowly dwindle down has given them insight into what they're doing, according to their Steam posts. And it all led up to a major update on November 22nd, just in time for me to resume playing on the 23rd. It was a full wipe update, so everyone back to square one, and constitutes what Donkey Crew are referring to as Season 2, the Commerce theme. So what's new here? Well, the graphics. Oh, no. The graphics aren't new. They actually, for some reason, look really old, like a lot older than the game. And that means that my pedal-powered desktop torque battery has had little issue running this game on the ultra settings. As stated in another game, if you've got newer ropes and pulleys installed than I do, you'll likely be okay. Any hiccups I experienced in graphics really seem dependent upon my interweb connection. That is, pop-in and such appears to be simply communication lags, not troubles my compu is up against. Then there's the animations. And the ships look great. I love the sails, slowly undulating, and the way the legs actually seem like a plausible setup, even if the gear ratios would have to be massively stepped to get one of these things moving on pedal power alone. Seeing other players' lumber beasts moving off in the distance, they look like beautiful and bizarre insects, slowly wandering around, just doing what insects do. Up close, they stomp across the terra with a good amount of heft, and each design feels different. Light and nimble, or heavy, and crashing them around is a good, if not great, time. You, on the other hand, could use some work. When you aren't on your sandboat, you tend to run around like someone trying desperately not to lose all bladder control. Equipping something, a tool or weapon, will make you appear to move around more normally, but without? I can't say these graphics and animations look dated. They look like they were dated, got married, had a couple kids, went through a midlife crisis, got divorced, moved onto a friend's couch for a couple months, got a dog, went big on yogurt, moved to Miami, forgot what year it was, went to bed every evening around 5 and again around 9, tried to take up yoga, then that is, the character animations ain't no great shakes. The fighting and gathering all look pretty mundane. This is still, after all, early access, so these might just be placeholders for more focused work later on, but for some reason, I doubt it. Why? Well, because the walkers are, and should remain, the central feature of this game, and that happens to be where most of the effort on the updates is being directed. When I first played the game, I think there were maybe 6 or 7 different walkers you could build. Maybe there were more and I didn't notice them, but over the months, they've added in more and more designs, some specialized for certain tasks like transporting bases or walkers, or digging up water or lava. And there's every reason to believe that that'll be the same for the future, adding new parts or whole new design schemes to take advantage of whatever systems they add in. All that said, I have noticed a few things in the graphics I would call bugs of some kind, but they're mostly related to the character animations and movements in some of the ships. The steering rod will disappear, the pedaling will stop, but these aren't game breakers. Everything still works fine. Also, there seems to be object permanence only for some things, ship not necessarily included. I found myself moving through something in the landscape only to get caught and stopped by the campfire on the aft deck. Annoying, but again, not game-breaking. I've also run into some distressing pop-in moments where a Rupu village erupted up around a small Rupu hut when I turned around for a second. Yeah, distressing. But I'm just throwing out that these are the only things I've noticed where the graphics don't seem to function correctly. So really, in my experience, while the graphics aren't too impressive in general, nothing has been game-breaking, and Donkey Crew really has done a good job with the vehicles. The sounds... I could live mostly without them. The screeches from the Rupus are useful to let you know they're looking at you, and getting anxious about it, but don't necessarily add to the game in any way. If you're into the dialogue from the first 10 minutes of 2001: A Space Odyssey, well, these things have you covered. The walkers, though, again, stand out here. The creaking of the wood and the rope really does have a nautical kind of thing going on, making me want to break out into shanties or throat singing. There's some sparse voice work throughout the main mission parts, describing what happened to the world, but it quickly fades off into obscurity, leaving really just the music, which is also kind of sparse. Consisting mostly of short banjo stings and riffs, there really only seems to be anything approaching music tracks when being attacked by things. Now, Donkey Crew has the soundtrack for sale on Steam, and I don't know, I'm curious what it contains. Part of me hopes there's a good selection of longer pieces, because the banjo-y stuff is pretty good. The other part of me hopes it was approached like the fingertips section of They Might Be Giants Apollo 18. Just a slew of 1 to 3 second long banjo plings that you can throw on randomly in your daily life to add that little bit of poignancy to making a cup of coffee. And full circle, we pull back up to the future and the road mapping of Last Oasis. Ready? Both are a little uncertain. Earlier, I noted that Donkey Crew has spent the time since March learning. I also mentioned that one of the things they've been learning from is the dwindling player base, and yeah, looking at the Steam chart shows the game dropping from a high of 33,000 concurrent players to around 700 in just 5 months. That's pretty grim. The Season 2 update saw playership surge to almost 6,000, but it's already trending back downward, and why? Now, I have some ideas on this. The brutally honest side of me sees a couple problems. One, the player base is not so much hostile as special. The chat is its own worst nightmare, and possibly the worst chat I've seen outside of Congregate. 2, the setup feels a little Old Republic-y. Not enough player density to keep it interesting. I suppose that could be a plus, given the horrible nature of the folks in chat, but it also leads to the feeling that you might be the only one playing the game. And with server numbers where they were, you might have been the only one playing the game. It's also possible to rent out private servers, so you and your personal pirate party can ransack, each other and never interact with another player anywhere, further eroding the whole MMO side on the general servers. And while the commerce update has added in things like missions and trading between players, it still feels like there's little to the game apart from build bigger boat. The missions all seem to fall into the go do this 10 times or go to this place and do something categories, and not really the sort of depth that will keep peeps coming back and keep server pops going up. Seriously, any dev that sees average player numbers go from about 15,000 to about 450 in a few months has something bigger than fetch quests to figure out. Maybe we can look forward to seeing Donkey Crew in Gordon Ramsay's Game Dev Nightmares or something. Episode 2 to Marvel's Avengers as Episode 1. Now, obviously, I don't speak for everyone. And I'm pretty certain I don't speak for the demographic this game is reaching for. If you're into clans or guilds or societies or whatever in your MMOs, then the battles here and the associated clan activities will probably work for you. But I'm more in step with MMOs that have elements or areas that are tailored for group play, while other things can easily, or challengingly, be approached on your own if your happy gang of thugs doesn't happen to be online. And I'm not finding that here. Don't let me turn you away, though. The game is coming to an Xbox near you, and Donkey Crew is making it cross-play compatible on PC and Xbox on day one. They've also said they're open to making it PS5 worthy, but that'll take a little time, mainly from, I guess, a framework perspective. It seems that Xbox is just a little more accessible to early access endeavors than PS5. According to the roadmap, there's also at least one more major update ahead, the Ancient theme, which will let players explore old ruins. So there's that. Still, it'd be nice if there was a point to it all. If the only real payoff is to have control over an area to take in resources and tax revenue, then this game really comes across as a more sophisticated or complicated clicker game. That is, grow to grow more, but you're never really going to accomplish anything. Which I suppose sums up a lot of MMOs. Even my beloved Secret World devolved into repetitive cycles once you pushed through the story elements. But at least there were story elements to engage in, and damned if they weren't well crafted, thanks in no small part to Ragnar Tornquist.
I would join you, document your expedition. Although, those are not the only paths. Some run deeper, more hidden.
And I don't really know what a story would look like here. In the lore, Nibiru came through town, wrecked things up a bit, then moved on, leaving the Earth a wasteland. So, what? Next we take the battle to the Anunnaki? Or write sternly worded letters to the editor about the obvious truths of Zechariah Sitchin's long-derided theories? I don't know. I actually don't really see space for any campaign or story mode here. There's no hint of a narrative at all in the voiceovers, just exposition. And the missions give as much story as you can expect to get from any MMO mission that has you killing 10 Timberwolves. What my conventional friends would call none. So, the future looks shaky for this game, from my perspective. I had to go back to the Magic 8-Ball to get a better idea, and it said, you may rely on it. So, maybe some optimism is required as Donkey Crew continue putting their ideas together. For me, though, I don't know. I don't know if this game is for me or that I'm the kind of gamer Donkey is trying to market to. The new Commerce update didn't seem to add much that would make me want to continue playing, but I am interested in the next Ancient theme update to see how it shakes out. But going forward, maybe a more thorough rethink is still needed. How about, I don't know, changing this game into an arena battler, Coliseum-like naval battles without the water, or Vigilante 8 with lumber, or, I don't know, creating tracks for Mario Kart-ish smash-em-up races, anything to add some meaning to what you're doing. And I feel that sums up my reactions to this game. Not really into it now, but willing to see how it all comes together. I'll likely come back to revisit this game as major updates are announced and released, but until it has something that I can sink my teeth into, I can't say I'll be playing it all that much. As always, thanks for stopping by. I've got some links down where you're likely to find them, and I had YouTube put all the appropriate buttons in all the usual places, so they're easy to find. Next time, I'll be slowing things down, way down, to check that my house is soundly and securely built. Until then, thanks, and cheers! Shy